And that pointed me towards a study done in Vermont, and the one in Vermont had 5 different methods that they were debating on how to measure background sound. And what it came up with was, when actually testing them against each other, most of them failed. The one that works is when you turn the turbines off and turn them on. So you actually measure the sound right next to each other. You turn the turbine off, you measure the sound, you determine the background sound. You turn it on, you see if it's louder, you measure the sound, you subtract the difference, and you have the sound being produced by the turbine. That was the most, according to that, the most accurate. And Hessler basically said the same thing. So, a lot of that has been changed just recently. Also, if you look at the study for Freedom, it shows the deficiencies. They're not serious, but they add deficiencies in the DEP method.
Yeah, and I think that Beaver Ridge study does. Again, I could be mistaken as I'm a layperson on a lot of these terms, but am I mistaken that Hessler is advising the planning board not to use some of the methods that were used in the Beaver Ridge study?
No, he didn't specifically. I went to that and took a look at what was and wasn't working there. And it's like, why do I want to write something or put something in our ordinance that didn't work somewhere else?
Well, for instance, I think Hessler may have said something about not being feasible to wait for conditions where one meteorological tower reads below 6 meters per second.
Yeah, it's in some cases, what was it? We had someone at one time that said that they had had the meteorological instruments up for over 2 months without getting those specific circumstances. What you are looking for is in many areas, a rare condition, which makes it extremely hard to ever prove. And are you really going to be testing for that one day in a year when you have those conditions, or do you want to know whether or not it's in compliance 95% of the time?
No operation. So on a 10 kilowatt thing, what I was thinking of was, and Bruce is right and I'm partially right. What I had read here was, and I kind of walked all the way around it, says no operational permitting shall be required for small wind energy systems rated for a capacity of 10 kW or less. Systems rated for more than 10 kW shall obtain a small wind energy system operational permit. So basically, you know,
We're both right.
What's that?
We're both right to a
To a degree. I was thinking that meant they didn't have to have a permit at all, that they could just do it at the 10 kW level. So if we're thinking about doing this, I mean, I do think probably that the 10 kW level and lower, we should take a hard look at how that can be done. I mean, I don't think 10 kW is like a generator at your house.
Yeah, but in a wind turbine, that's a common size, because again, you're looking at that probably, actually less than, you're probably looking for one of those small ones at only about a 20% duty cycle. So,
well, like that thing down there, I bet you that thing's probably not even, that little prop, I bet you that thing is barely like 1 kW.
it may be one of the four. I'm not familiar with it. I'm wondering if it's not one of the little 400 watters.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It might even be 400 watts. It's just on the garage roof.
Yeah, I gotta take a look at that. I missed it, so it's at the corner of the Perkoff Road.
Yeah, it's cool. I see it every time I go by there. I think about how.
As soon as I look at it, I can probably tell you which one it is.
I think he's going to put, like, I don't know if I were going to put solar panels out there too, because he's got such good exposure.
Yeah.
He probably put, I bet he has like a battery bank inside.
And if he's got it mounted on the roof, my guess is it's probably the 400 watt. There's one particular one in particular that is small enough to safely mount on the roof without tearing the roof off. It is also mounted lots of times on sailboats.
Yeah, well, that's the type of, that's basically like, that's the
It's about yay big around.
Yeah, that's all it is. So I don't know. So we should maybe look at that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the little 400 watt one I doubt is going to be loud enough for people to have to worry about. When you get up to the 10K, which is a size that's actually practical to power a household with battery backup, I mean, if you want to be off grid. They get noisy. I was surprised. I was really surprised.
Well, and it's something that we should just look into a little bit. But clearly, a single homeowner with a single turbine that's 10 kWh shouldn't be regulated the same as a system.
Well, they're not being regulated or required to go through all of the sound studies and everything, but we're saying you can't bother your neighbors any more than the big one does.
Right, okay.
So, the,
So are you asking more questions about small wind
well,
energy systems?
no, I'm just kind of left wondering how that's written, but I guess we'll wait.
Oh, I'll bring it up.
Oh, it's, down a little more. You're
Small is
right.
14.7.
You got it, yeah. Oh, small, okay. Then come down. These are exactly the same. 14.7.2.3.1.2, whoops, misnumbered.
Yeah, we'll
4,
fix that.
5, and 6, and the mitigation waiver are exactly the same for small ones as they are for large ones.
Okay, and these have been posted to the website.
No, these have not, 'cause I just
Okay.
got them like
Okay,
Like-
I just wanted,
5 minutes before I got
I
here.
just wanted to see.
And Jared still got it. I promise, Jessica.
Well, it just has a direct relation with
Okay.
what he's talking about. Is that if stuff isn't posted right now, and we've already had 2 public hearings, what the hell are we doing?
We're being responsive to you.
And we've been changing it based on all of the questions and all of the comments.
Exactly, that's why you have public hearings. Because so you can tell us what you like and don't like, and then we can make changes.
And okay, but now what if now we're having questions on the changes? I mean, this could go on
Okay,
and on
well,
and on.
you're
and
right,
on.
and you know what's gonna happen? We're gonna make a decision in the next 2 weeks, and you're gonna like it or not like it, and we're gonna have public information sessions between now and June, and you're gonna vote yes, and you're gonna vote no. That's gonna be the way it is. It's just gonna be, that's just the reality of it. We're not gonna belabor this for like the next 6 months, you know, or whatever, and then that's just the way it is for everything that you vote on. You don't go, well, we're still arguing over how the next representative for Congress feels about stuff, so we're going to delay the elections for 6 more months so we can get a better feel for the guy who's running for Congress or whatever else, or the $50 million bond issue. Well, somebody brought something else up this new week about the $50 million bond issue, so we're going to think about it for 6 more months before we have a vote. Just do it.
I'm confused. Can I ask?
Go ahead, Jared, can she
I'm
have?
confused. It sounded sometimes this evening like you made changes to the sound standards since last week, or?
We have a proposal, because that's what we do at workshops. We make proposals, and we discuss them, and then we post them.
Okay, so are there new ones proposed?
That's what we're talking about tonight. That's why we had that hour-long discussion tonight about sound.
Are they on the website yet? No, I'm sorry, I told you I was confused. That's what straightened me out.
Before the meeting tonight, I just mentioned that Bruce just posted these things, you know, to us to talk about at the meeting now. Okay, because the planning board is the body that discusses the stuff, you know, and then we post it. Now, because nobody offered to make a presentation last Friday for tonight's meeting, there really is no really room for comments anymore. This is really
Just a quick question. You already told me. Yeah, there are
for
new
us.
ones.
Well, no, they're not. There's not posted yet because we haven't decided yet. Obviously, Dave had some issues
Trying to
tonight.
catch up here.
So, Jerry, do you have any more technical questions on some of this stuff? And those were good questions because we wouldn't have caught that if you hadn't brought that up. So I was actually pretty glad that you brought it up after we went back and looked it over.
Yeah, especially on the small ones. pretty much the small ones have been ignored by everyone. About half of the ordinances out there, well, I'd say maybe a quarter of them, don't regulate the small ones at all. They're just assumed to be no big deal.
But they are a big deal.
And then there are other ordinances that go so far as to split them into 4 different size categories. And even then, the small ones usually are almost not regulated or have very minor. It's basically, yeah, go ahead and do it.
So, this is what we're back to then.
Jesse,
Oh, just one more thing before we leave the small wind turbine. You could just go down to it. You said a little bit earlier that they had the same standards.
Same performance standards.
Could you scroll up?
Are you looking for something I can get Bruce to help find it?
Well, it used to be from property, yeah, right there. Setback from property lines.
it's right there.
Those things are usually like, what, 200 feet tall, 150 feet?
Small ones usually, you see some places that regulate them at 50 feet, but unless you're in Texas with no trees, that doesn't work. Most of them suggested for here are 100 to 130 feet, and that's to get them above the trees.
Right, so that would give you like 300 feet from a property line, 400 feet from a property line.
But we're not saying property line for the large turbines.
Excuse me?
But we're not saying property lines for large turbines.
Well, at some point you have like diminishing returns. I mean, everything isn't scalable to like the next thing up. If you know, just because, I mean, it's like fixed cost and variable cost if you're running your business. I mean, there's a certain amount that you definitely need to be safe, but then after that it's superfluous. But if you need to get a piece of heavy equipment in there or whatever, if you made it too close to a property line and the thing fell down and you had to get a crane in there or whatever to pick it up, you know, and you don't have enough distance to get your equipment to go get it, you know, picked up off the ground, then it's a problem. So the idea of having it like at least 300 or 400 feet from the property line or whatever is to make sure that you have room to get in there and pick it up if there's an accident, or for firefighting equipment or who knows what. And the other thing is, it's just like even from a fire hazard perspective, I mean, something like this is going to be obviously closer to the tree heights, and if for some reason it does catch on fire, you know, it probably, if you had something like this, theoretically, people might have it in an area where there's more housing and things like that, so you would want to be able to have some, you know, theoretical fire protection in there that you wouldn't necessarily need for stuff that's, you know, another 300 feet up.
And if you think about it, since they're usually only about 100 feet tall, your setback distance is only 300 feet from the property line.
I was just noticing that it said property line and the large
Right.
turbines doesn't.
But I mean, there's just, that's kind of the rationales for just the context of the problem.
This is the safety setback, and safety setbacks for the large ones are also regulated to the property line.
Right, see, you left my words in there, no operational permitting for that too. That's how I got confused, but anyway.
Yeah. Put it up at your own risk. If your neighbors complain, you'll probably be tearing it down.
Probably.
Which is why I added the ability to put in a mitigation waiver. So if you think it's gonna bother your neighbor, hey, if he gives you permission.
Good idea.
Right, and we do have, I mean, and there are tonal penalties in here. It's probably much more likely that you're gonna have issues with tones with those small ones using the older technology than you are with big ones, which are designed to not have that stuff, because they don't have gears, and a lot of them don't even have gears anymore, they're all magnetos.
Yeah, it depends on the design. There's one particular design that I was looking at with the small ones, it does use a gearbox. They're known for being very loud.
Right,
There's
so,
another one that basically is direct drive, it's like the prop is on the end of the alternator and it's supposedly quite quiet.
so
Yeah,
there's
they're gonna
options.
vary.
So anyways. So, I mean, I don't know how to solve the problem, Dave. I mean, I do think that you have legitimate points on that. I think that's what it all boils down to, is this distance thing. I mean, I think that everybody kind of agrees that it's nice to have 35 decibels, you know, at residences, and that there is no more excursion I think that's a positive. No, there's no more exceptions, so to speak, okay? So that's been taken out of the ordinance. I mean, there's a lot that's been made even more restrictive that would have made it less palatable before. But I do actually agree that it's going to be more difficult to try to tell people that this 35 decibels, and 45 decibels at property lines that Bruce is proposing is more restrictive, because I mean, it is restrictive in many ways, but it's not restrictive in the way that has an ocular impact.
Not to belabor the point, people are going to want to know how far is this going to be from my house. I think it's a fair question.
I think so.
And I would tell them right off, it's gonna be at least 3,000 feet, and it will
Then why don't
vary.
we codify that?
Because then you're saying if technology or anything else changes in the future.
This is a living document.
Right, exactly. He has,
Look how much trouble it is changing it now.
well, I know, but that's kind of the point. Dave's point, I mean, the thing is you can't have it both ways, Bruce, because several times you wrote in this thing, why this is by definition, it's a living document. You use those exact words.
No, I
Right,
agree with you.
Right,
but
so
I still
Dave's point is a good point.
Yeah.
So
It's
change
just-
it.
Every time you have a standard that you can't back up with a legitimate reason for, you're leaving it as a possibility for a lawsuit from one side or the other. And that was one of my prime considerations. Again, these are recommendations, they can be changed by.
Well, no, I realize
I'm
that.
trying to eliminate
but
the
Dave-
chance of people suing us over saying, you got no reason to do it that way.
True, but I mean, I'm trying to look for compromise. You guys have to have some compromise. Vern, what do you think of compromise
Well,
position?
I asked a while ago, what is the number that you want for footage? Based on the 35, whatever that is, or stay with the 4,000, what number is Dave looking for?
We originally reviewed, I wasn't here, but the previous criteria was 4,000 feet and 35.
Yeah, well, we started at 40 and 50, and then we went down to 35. Is it 35 and 50?
No,
I'm not,
No.
certainly,
we started out at, it's always been, I think, 40 at 4,000 feet.
And 50 at 4,000 feet in a day.
Yeah, and it was 50 during the day at 4,000 feet. And it was only in 2011 that we dropped it to 35 outside of residences. Before that, we had strictly the distance,
Okay,
which meant if it was louder than that, would have been too bad.
so we had like 35, 40, and 50 then, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, and so and just to really be clear, Bruce's proposal is, I believe, 35 and 45. 35 at sensitive locations, 45 at property lines, and no excursion limits. So just want to make sure we understood the context. So go back to your discussion with
respect to
Vern.
my central comment, Mr. Hessler, who's, is a very respected expert in all that, is proposing his letter, I think, solely based on sound. My argument, and once again, I may be repeating myself, is it certainly probably based on good science and good engineering, but I do not think, in the interest of the town, it should be the sole factor that determines placement of future turbines. This is a living document, as we well said. This, just to talk hypothetically, let's say this gets built, and say it's great,
Doing
it's
well or
quiet
whatever.
and all that. We can then revise the standards in the future. We don't, to my knowledge, have other developers standing in line and say, gee, I want to build a wind turbine. So, if
The only thing I heard was somebody
gets
wanted to
built,
buy Eagle Bluff and put up a wind turbine, but obviously they didn't read the ordinance and find out they couldn't do it there anyway.
But the bottom line is there may be a learning curve. This is torn the town apart. This may or may not get built. If it gets built, there'll be a learning curve, see how it works. The ordinance can be just like courts. Okay, I'm not suggesting moratorium or anything else. I'm just saying keep it as it is, and with the provision that in the future we may want to change it based on how PISCA is accepted into the community.
Okay, well, to kind of deviate from that, okay, a little bit, all right? Then let's just bend the 4,000
the distance thing for just a second. As far as the standards for how we go about doing the measurements, okay? Because Bruce made quite a few changes to those. So as far as the measurement part, we're using the ANSI standard now, is that right, Bruce?
You have to look at it in the, is it ANSI or is it ICO?
Or ISO?
ISO.
Okay, because
Which
the one-
actually is, I believe it's also copied in an ANSI standard, but I found it in ISO, so I copied it from the ISO.
we were,
Because I found the exact same standard mentioned in other ordinances, only they're quoting an ANSI,
so we were using the IEC standard, right? Trying to find where that was.
yes. We were using IEC 61400-11.
Right, which is not correct, right? That's not the one we should be using.
It's not correct at any distance beyond the measurement point. And the measurement point is defined as 1 and a percentage times the height. It's either the height for the tower or it's the height for the tower plus half the diameter of the blades, or there's a particular formula, and that's where you do the measurements. And the ICE standard is only applicable at that distance.
We still use some IEC standards. These are all okay by Hessler, is that correct? These measurement techniques?
Yes, those are, but it's also why I was careful not to over-define them and to say you're using the latest versions. So if the standards get updated, it's automatically updated in our ordinance.
So, and then are you comfortable taking also ISO contours out of it?
Well, I think the engineering aspects are pretty clear on that, right?
Right, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the pre-construction ISO contours.
I thought they were impossible to do.
Well, they are.
Well,
Well, I know, but in my opinion, it's what Hessler told us, what other people told us.
No, I certainly have no, I think I mentioned that previously.
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm just trying to get through what we agree on here, okay?
So I do not have an objection to removing ISO contours.
So the one now, there's another standard that's the L, there's a whole business about these DBC levels, okay? So,
I don't have terrible issues with those. The basic issue that I had is I
well, no, I got it. I just want to make sure, I mean,
I'm
we
important,
got it,
guys.
you got it, dude.
But
Okay.
I just think in the interest of
Okay,
town.
okay, but then now the next thing, okay, the retroactivity, okay, did you read that?
I might have to give that some more thought. As a general rule, I'm not in favor of retroactivity. I think it's changing the goalpost again, but I won't say I won't support it if there's a compelling reason to do so. It conveys the impression, I'm not saying the fact, but the impression that it's a sweetheart deal.
Well, what if you made a big mistake?
Well, unfortunately, if you make a big mistake in a facility, be it a quarry or a wind farm or something else gets built based on a mistake, it's kind of hard to undo that kind of mistake. If that's your question, if I understood it correctly.
Well, right, well, if you shouldn't have done something.
That's why I wanted a safety margin of the distance.
Well, right, well, what if you told your kids that they couldn't do something because of some bad thing or whatever, and it turned out that the bad thing was totally, not true or whatever, completely false. I mean, and they could have done it anyway. If that ISO contour statement hadn't been in there, we wouldn't have had that whole argument about ISO contours. We shouldn't have had it in there in the first place. So if on the developer side or anybody else's side, if you are proven that you did something wrong, then how should you remedy it?
Well, the remedy is, number one, to revise the current rules, but he's got it's up to the court right now. I think that, we can guess at the court,
I have no
depending on
idea.
what they do. I don't know. Yeah, I wish I had a good answer, but it's the appearance. I used to work.
Okay. I know what you're saying on this appearance thing, okay?
Now,
It's a
over in
street
Addington,
article.
and
It
then
appeared to be a
okay,
street.
okay, well, what about over in Addington, okay, where they just basically, an issued permit was over a year ago, or almost 9 months ago, something like that, is revoked through a retroactivity clause. How do you feel about that?
Well, I haven't studied the quarry issue, I've been seeing a lot of road signs saying.
Well, no, but I mean, just conceptually, I don't even really know the details of it. All I know is the most simple is a permit was issued and then
For a 5 acre
or
quarry.
whatever, but now the whole
Now
thing's
they're
been,
going 20
the whole
acres.
thing's been retroactivated or whatever, retro. There was an ordinance made to stop them, the moratorium was retroactive to predate whatever their permit date was.
But that was based on a town vote, was it not?
Right, well, we're asking for a town vote.
Well, I would like, if we're gonna do all this work, I'd like the town to approve the revisions. If we have something in there, and the perception is, you can have a wind farm 1,500 feet from your house, if you vote for this, people are gonna say, whether it's based on fact or not, that's gonna weigh in on how people do it. If you
Right.
say it'll be based on noise and
Okay, but hang on. So let's go back.
You
Let's go.
keep repeating that 1,500 feet.
Well,
and
that's what it
repeating
says
something-
right there.
No, repeating
it's not.
something that cannot be is not a good thing to be
But-
doing.
But, okay, it gets back to basic question. A developer comes in and says, I want to build a wind farm place. What's the closest that wind farm can be to my house? And if you say 35 decibels, that doesn't
Okay,
help.
but okay, so let's just just pretend, because I just want to only talk about one thing at a time. I want to put it in bite chunks, okay? I don't want to go back to 4,000 feet. We know how you feel about the 4,000 feet. Let's assume, for this discussion's sake, that we're at 4,000 feet. Just, I want to hear how people feel only about just retroactivity alone. No, don't go off on a tangent to avoid discussion here, because this is a hard discussion.
Well, first of all, if I understood correctly, the original permit was approved on 4,000 foot basis, correct? So we're
Correct.
not changing anything.
Correct. So I'm talking about the ISO, the proposal to make retroactive the presentation of pre-development ISO contours, which can't be done. You know, everything else.
Would I support I think your question is, would I support a retroactive approval if it was based on distance and sound? The answer is yes. Would
Well, no,
I
that has nothing to do with it.
Well, maybe I misunderstood the
I
question.
think you are, okay? We're gonna assuming, holding constant, that the sound and distance things we're gonna go with a distance of 4,000 feet, and the sound is gonna be even more restrictive, just holding that constant, okay? Now, that alone, okay, we've for discussion, we've capitulated to your suggestion here, okay? Or we're taking your suggestion of the 4,000 feet. Just the issue of retroactivity alone with everything else, where are you on that?
I would have no objection to voting for retroactivity if it kept the distance and the sound, and as far as meeting all the other requirements. The ISO contour maps, I think that's a red herring, and it's not engineeringly feasible. I would have no problem with it. What I would have a problem with at this point in time is if we did away with distance and just based it on sound.
Well, okay,
Make
just-
that retroactive.
Okay, that's not retroactive, just to be actually clear with you. That 4,000 feet thing is not retroactive. Is not.
In other words, just based on sound, and we'd make it retroactive.
No, the 4,000 feet thing the getting rid of the 4,000 feet, if we were to do that, would only be effective today. Or not today, but I mean, after the vote. It would not have any effect on the rear end projects. It would only have effect on, just like you were talking about earlier, on the go forward projects. If somebody else wanted to come into town, it would affect them. So the current project has no effect, whether it's 4,000 feet or not 4,000 feet, has absolutely no effect on the current project.
On the
It
current
has
project.
zero effect.
But a new developer coming in wanting to build
Yes.
a,
Yes.
would I make it retroactive to 4,000 feet and 35 decibels?
Well, the retroactivity wouldn't matter because they wouldn't come in until June anyway.
Well, I still don't understand the question.
Okay, the retroactivity, all that means, this is what the retroactivity means. So we would be basically, we'll just kind of really make it simple here. You know, all cars must be red. Okay, in 2010 we wrote all cars must be red. Well, then we found out that there's no such thing as red paint. There's only pink paint. All right, so what we're saying is because we found out that there's no such thing as red paint, there's only pink paint and blue paint and other paints, but there's no red paint. We're going to go back and say you don't have to make You don't have to have a red car, and we're gonna make it retroactive to 2010 as if it never existed, okay? We want to basically, by the net effect of this would be that it never existed. That's what retroactivity means. It never existed. It never happened. Okay, that's what that would mean. For that one sentence.
I still don't know quite.
The ISO contours, the
I
pre-construction.
said I'm not objecting to that.
Okay, well, the 4,000, okay, well, the 4,000 feet thing has nothing to do with that.
Understand, you're understanding, I don't think you understand my reason
I
for having
know.
all 4,000 feet.
Okay.
Kessler is recommending that it be based
Oh,
solely
okay,
on sound. I'm
We're
saying-
agreeing to 4,000
That
feet.
has nothing to do with retroactivity.
Right.
Just
We're
get
agreeing
that
with you.
in.
Okay.
We're agreeing with you
I'm
for 4,000 feet,
okay,
okay?
so-
I'm tracking, okay? Just, we're agreeing with you for the moment, okay? We're agreeing with you. We're gonna keep 4,000 feet in there, okay?
Okay.
So that has nothing to do with any of this retroactivity thing. They're not even related. Okay, we're gonna agree to the 4,000 feet. I'm just trying to get consensus on whether or not we can put retroactivity in there or not put retroactivity in there. That's the only question. We're not talking about 4,000 feet right now.
What are we talking about?
Retroactivity, which you just agreed that that you're all support.
Not only for the two items that are
Submission
bad
requirements.
science.
Right, they're submission requirements. They have nothing to do with the outcome of the project. They're erroneously written submission requirements.
I'm in favor of removing erroneously written submission requirements, number one,
Right.
as long as there's valid science for it. On the other hand, Mr. Hessler doesn't live here. We do, and he's saying, just go with sound. I object.
Whoa,
I know, it's hard to
we're-
differentiate the issue.
Okay, well, all right.
Now, are we making retro?
No, we're not.
Active?
No, we're not. We're not changing the 4,000 feet in arrears. It is not gonna
Well,
change.
what are we changing?
Only the maps, the submission of maps.
ISO contour.
ISO contour maps.
I've
which were
already
never
said, I'm,
Right,
okay,
okay.
I don't know, that's why I was
No,
confused.
but there's a second issue that was asked for as well.
The DBC minus DBA at 20 decibels, because they're kind of based on ISO contour maps that you can't do.
Yeah, but I thought we had a previous discussion about pre-construction ISO contour
Right,
maps
exactly.
were impossible to do.
Correct.
Hessler said that, other people have said that, I accept that, I
Right.
don't have
So-
an issue with that, so I don't understand.
Well, all right. The issue, I just want to make sure it's really clear. Do you understand what we mean by the retroactivity?
Yes,
Do you understand? Okay. The retroactivity basically is